Hey, everybody, this is Chris Cotton with the AutoFix Advisor Cast and AutoFix-Auto Shop Coaching. We're here today talking to Kacie Presnell, probably one of the best managers in the country. At the top, if not the best. I would take her in Durango, Colorado, if she ever decided to move out here and work in our shop. I would for sure take her. How are you doing today, Kacie?
I'm doing really good.
Good. And so can you tell us where you're at, what shop you work for, everything like that?
Sure. We are at Yoakum is an independent repair shop. It's located in Republic, Missouri, which is a suburb of Springfield area. We're about 10 miles west of Springfield, Missouri, the big Bass Pro Shops capital of the world.
Right.
We have 3 ATECs in our shop, and we have 2 service advisors. And we're just in a small community, but it's a growing community. It's one of the fastest growing cities in the state of Missouri.
That's crazy. It seems like, you have all these people shifting and moving from one part of the country to the next. And I will tell everybody, all the listeners out there, shop owner, service advisors, this is probably the best ran 4-bay 2 service advisor shop in the country, just from a standpoint of average repair order, car count, profits, and everything else like that. But before we kind of get into that, how long have you been working for Brent there?
So I've been there 17 years.
Okay. And then what did you do before that? What was your background before?
I have been a stay-at-home mom. I have been a paramedic. I have been a legal liaison. I've done a lot of things.
And probably the best cake maker I know.
Oh, I do have in-home bakery, and I raise dogs, and I'm the financial secretary for my church.
So you're always on the go, right?
A little bit, yeah.
So how do you think all of those things have helped you be the service advisor and manager you've become?
Just learning people is the biggest thing. People are just different, and learning how to meet them at their need instead of just kind of a one size fits all. You have to kind of meet people where they're at, and all of my different jobs have taught me a lot about people.
It's interesting that you say paramedic. I don't think I knew that about you. I don't know that we've ever talked about that, but I think that's fascinating. And just the stress level of being a paramedic. We had another shop that we coached that they had an ER nurse come in and work as a service advisor, and she was kicked back in the corner. She's like, "This is not stressful at all." She goes, if you want something stressful, come work in the ER with me. Like it's all perspective based, right?
Yes, I handle all the triage at the shop, all the cut fingers and all that. But I told Brent when I started working for him, he was saying he was going to get me a new stool or something to sit on, that one wasn't very comfortable. And I said, I've been a stay-at-home mom for 4 years. Like, this is the most I've sat down in one day in a long time.
Right.
So
for sure. Well, you'd think maybe having a paramedic on staff would make their workers' comp insurance and everything go down, maybe.
You never know.
You never know, right? So a couple of things that we talked about in the beginning before we hit record was you wanted to talk about the way you do correspondence with your customers and teach us a little bit about that. You want to go ahead and get into that?
Sure. So we have the texting availability. Our mechanics all use tablets to write to do their diagnosis, take pictures, all that. A lot of shops do that. That's commonplace now. When we first started doing it, it wasn't, but it's become very common. So we prepare the estimates. One of my rules in the shop is that we present all the information to all the people all the time. So that keeps us from predetermining what a customer will spend or what they want to do, and then it's fair. It's not ever cherry picking certain vehicles or certain customer types. It's just saying this is what we do all the time. So that's one thing that we do. But with the estimating process and putting together maintenance needs, repair needs, those kind of things, it can be overwhelming, I think, when people receive that on their end of getting, a laundry list of what they might need to get done on their vehicle. And I thought about it a couple months ago. If I was setting at my job, or maybe I was at my job as a paramedic, or maybe even a stay-at-home mom. If I was sitting there and I received this text message that just had this huge list of things, and maybe I took it in for an oil change, but maybe I took it in, have a diagnosis done, but then I get 5 or 6 items that my car needs. I think that people immediately shut down when they see that, and they just go, just do the oil change, and I'll talk to my significant other and we'll figure this out. And so what we started doing is we send the inspection information that's going to give the details about what's needed, why it's needed. It's going to give them pictures to look at, but we don't send the estimate at that time. We give
Okay.
them time to digest that. Our program that we use lets us see when they actually view the inspection. So once they've viewed it and have had a little bit of time to digest it, we call them at that point. Before
Okay.
we were just sending
And
the estimate.
we can mention that. So you guys use Techmetric, which we use Techmetric in our shop as well.
Yeah. So
Um, s-
we call them instead of sending them the estimate,
okay.
and go through and answer their questions before we get to the numbers of things. Because once we are able to explain why something is important, or the order of things that can be repaired, or maybe something that could wait that they just need a budget for, it starts to establish that rapport of walking them through the approval process. Then we can go on to the numbers and talk about what they can afford. If we have any resistance at that point, that's when we can start offering the financing programs that we have
Right.
and give them some other options. But I think from what I've seen, that people, when they receive information, especially if it's at work, they don't want to deal with it then. And so they
Right.
tend to just shut down, decline everything, we'll deal with it later. And of course, we want to take care of those problems while it's in the shop with us.
And I will tell you, if you think back, probably, I think when I first met Brent, your guys' average repair order was in the 300s, maybe the low 300s, and
Yes.
now you guys are like getting close to 650 or staying over 650 now
Yes.
in less than 4 years. That's really really good.
And we found too that if we don't do that inspection, which that very rarely happens, but let's just say that we're super busy and it's just an oil change and we want to get them in and get them out. We found that we've trained our customers to actually expect that, because they'll say, you didn't find anything wrong,
Where's my
or was
inspection?
there
Yeah.
anything that I need? Even the people that don't necessarily purchase at the time of their vehicle being in there will always want to know, like, when do I need to do this? Or did you check on this filter while it was here? So we've trained our customer base to actually look for that inspection. But we found that they weren't opening the inspection. They weren't looking at the pictures, which we know data tells us that the pictures are what sells jobs. And so they weren't looking at that. They were just going directly to the estimate. They were seeing this big number and then just hitting decline. So this kind of stops that speedy process, slows it down, and lets us walk with the customer through that so that it's not so overwhelming.
That's awesome. So can you talk about, because one of the issues we were having in the beginning is the technicians really weren't bought into doing the pictures and everything on that. Can you talk about what Brent and you did to kind of get them, and I guess like if you're still doing your follow up and I guess the award, kind of what that system looks
Yes.
like?
So we incentivize the program to, if our mechanics are going through vehicles, doing their complete inspection, taking the pictures, the items that are sold off those pictures, we're able to keep account of that each week. And the mechanic with the highest number of upsells from pictures gets $100 spiff. And it's been
Okay.
very effective. I've seen huge improvements on that. I mean, they keep track of it more than we do. Honestly, they kind of have their own competition out there, and you can definitely tell when a mechanic is wanting to get that spiff. We also have a very hard rule that anything that is on that inspection is an upsell. I should be able to walk my customer out in the shop and show him exactly what that problem is.
Right. And No, I think that's been great. That's been really great for your guys' shop as far as getting the technicians on board. So if you're out there and you're having trouble with technicians taking pictures, then that's a good way for them to do that. Can you talk
It
about the
definitely pays
finance?
for itself. I'm sorry.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, $100 versus however many. Well, before I move on, how do you track that? Do you go back and look at each inspection to see what was sold, and then like have a spreadsheet, or how do you keep track of those things?
So it's a part of the mechanic's timesheet, which is a Google Doc, and they have to fill out their own. All of our mechanics are paid flat rate, and
Okay.
so they fill out their timesheet with the vehicle RO, the work that was done, and then anything that they consider an upsell goes in parentheses, and then they will say how many upsells were on that RO and how many were with pictures, and then
Okay.
their hours. And then we go back and we verify that information.
Okay,
We do
good.
it on a weekly basis.
That's a good way to keep track of that. Also, do you pay, just for random knowledge, do you guys get paid weekly, biweekly? How does Brent pay at the
Weekly.
shop? Weekly.
Weekly.
Okay. Yeah, I still run it. We pay weekly in our shop. I still run across a lot of people that pay biweekly or first and 15th or all kinds of different crazy ways. Now, you had mentioned financing a minute ago. How many different financing options do you have? And do you have one that's more successful than the others?
So we have Synchrony Car Care. What I like about that one is it's a very well known established program. It's very legit. Some of the programs that I've reviewed in the past, they're a little bit sketchy sometimes as far as how we present it to the customer and how that affects the customer's credit. And I don't want to ever be somebody that's adding to someone's credit problems.
Right.
So Synchrony Car Care is great. They have a really high approval rating. It's instant. They have a super easy website to use, and customers can do that themselves. The secondary one that we've started using is PayPal, where you can do the pay in four, I think it is,
Right.
where they can do four installments on their, and we've just started using that one. I ran one last week actually, and it seemed pretty seamless.
Well, and I know TechMetric has an option where the customer can use Klarna or Affirm. Do you have many people that are doing that?
We don't have, we do not have that set up on ours, no. I
Okay, so
looked
you don't have it as an
into
option.
Affirm and I looked into Klarna a little bit. Brent asked me to do some research on those, and I thought that PayPal was going to be a really good option for us.
Okay. Do you wait until the customer needs a bigger repair to get them approved for that, or are you working on like pre-approvals for people that way they don't have to like last minute?
So we have started promoting the financing more in the shop. We have some different marketing materials that are in the shop. It's on our website. Both the PayPal and the Synchrony are on our website. We try to do that needs based as far as like when we hear a customer, back off from a repair or say, I'm going to have to figure out how I can pay for this or those kind of things, we try to offer it then. We have been trying to be more proactive with offering it in the beginning instead of when they say I don't have any money and I've declined everything.
Right. Okay. And I know Brent and I have been talking about it a little bit, how things in your market to seem to be a little bit different, but what if anything are you doing to counteract that, or you want to talk about the shop kind of right now?
Sure. So I have noticed that it seems like to us that our customers have relaxed as far as not being so uptight about spending money on their vehicle. I think there was a lot of, after the election, before the election, during the election. And I think that more than anything just kind of creates a snowball cycle. I don't know that many people actually buy into it so much as they buy into the frenzy around it. So since that, since the election and those things, we've seen that our customers have been more relaxed about spending. And before we would have somebody that might be, you're in here for an oil change and you have a nail in your tire. Would you like us to fix that? No, I'm not doing anything. Just really, I
Interesting.
mean, really,
Yeah.
really tight. it seems like our customers have really loosened up and are wanting to get their vehicles taken care of. We have seen a big shift in, their for a while there, it was anytime you brought up a repair, it could be an alternator, then everybody was just going to trade in their vehicle. They're going to get rid of it.
Right.
That has definitely changed as far as they know that that's not a realistic possibility any longer.
Yeah, we had a customer come in last Friday on a newer Ford Bronco. I think it's a 21 or 22. There's no aftermarket water pump for that. There's no aftermarket belt for that even right now. It's like the 3-cylinder turbo. And she called Ford, and Ford told her it was going to be 8 weeks before they could get her in. And that was Friday. We got the part in first thing yesterday and got it done and changed out. But she had told me over the weekend that she went to Ford and was like, I've had all kinds of trouble with this Bronco. Maybe I want to trade it in and get something else. And as far as like new payments go, there was nothing, like everything was double what her payments were now. And she was going to have to get into a car that was like 4 years older than this one in order to get the payments even close to what she's paying. I think, vehicles are so expensive, and I guess this is good for us in the industry, but you have this parts obsolescence, and then you've got people holding on to their cars longer, which means that they're going to have more terminal breakdowns instead of just the maintenance. Because if you look at what we're doing 15 years ago, everybody was saying, hey, cars are more reliable, parts are better, they're not breaking down as much. So everybody was shifting to preventative maintenance. And it seems now like we're still doing preventative maintenance, but we're shifting back the other way, where we have these big repairs that are leading to bigger AROs and everything.
I agree. And I also think that vehicles now are not engineered from the perspective of being, worked on. So the repairs before that were an hour or, a simple starter, alternator, battery. I mean, some of those are now 2, 3 hours, depending on how a vehicle has been engineered and designed and where the location of those items are. Headlights that's a huge deal. Headlight used to be a 3/10 job all day long, and now we have headlights that are 2 hours. You're pulling the bumper off, you're recalibrating things, and so it's just not really designed for being repaired, and so that of course drives up all those prices.
Right. Anything else you're seeing industry wise or in your local area?
We see a lot of people. It seems like they're wanting to get into newer cars. We're not seeing as many of the super, 25, 30-year-old cars around any longer.
Right. Okay.
We try to shy away from that, but people kind of got pushed into new cars when, this kind of dates back a little bit, but when we had the cash for clunkers, and
Right.
then we got rid of all of the potential, used vehicles out there, it really left a huge gap in the car pool of what was available for people to buy. And honestly, the newer generations, they have no interest in a vintage vehicle. They want a vehicle with all the bells and whistles.
Right.
Something that we will start seeing more and more of is ADAS technology. And so that's kind of the wave of the future of vehicles eventually being able to drive themselves. That's where everything is pointing towards. So
Which is kind of just crazy. And I remember like all these young pups listening, they're not going to remember what Cash for Clunkers was like, or even like 2008, 2010. And those, like, if you think you're having trouble selling now, you should have been around back in those days, because that was tough. Like people would go drive their stuff to the salvage yard and pour the stuff in the engine and just blow it up and be like, okay, where's my money? Like it was
yeah,
crazy, crazy
yeah,
times. Really, really tough. And we were fighting for every customer we could get
yeah,
into the shop.
scraping for every order and just even trying to do an upsell was just unheard of back then. You were just hoping that they would buy the fuel pump. It's just,
Right.
so we have come a long ways in that.
Which, I guess that goes into, back then we didn't even think about mental health, but it's really hard when you're at the counter trying to sell and take care of customers and you get your teeth kicked in all the time. Do you do anything like what hobbies do you have? How do you relax and decompress after a long day at the shop?
Well, I have taken that stress on for several years working in the shop, and it was not good for me, not good for my health, not good for my mental health. And I've learned to just really detach from that. It's, it's their car. If they're going to fix it, they're going to fix it. If they're not, they're not. And there's always, people that personally attack you and come at you and those kind of things. And I really just try to not just let it go. I don't know these people. They don't know me. I'm trying to fix their car, and just that's the end of it.
Well, and I tell the guys all the time, I'm like, we didn't buy it, build it, or break it, but we can for sure fix it. Like that's the mentality you have to take at it. And our store manager was on vacation for a couple of days, so I went and helped the guys out. And I got one of those phone calls like at 4:50 on Friday, and the guy's screaming at me on the phone for no reason. And I think I'm going to do um, a separate podcast just on this one phone call. But the guy was just basically, I refused to fix his car, and he was just beside himself, screaming and yelling at me. I'm like, sir, I think the best option now is just you go your way, we go our way. I'm going to give you a receipt. I'm not charging you a penny for it. You wasted our time. We wasted your time, but we're just going to, boom, just wipe our hands and move on.
Yes. I've had customers even be physically threatening, those kind of things, and just say, we're not your shop. We're not a good shop for you. We're not a good fit for you, and we don't want you back.
Well,
I
he
will
showed up
say,
yet.
go
Go
ahead.
ahead. No, you go
Oh,
ahead.
I was going to say one thing that I've learned to do, and it's kind of a little bit of a mental head game with customers, is, when you're talking to somebody about their car, a lot of times they feel like it's a personal attack on them. It's be like
Right.
talking about your kids, And so if you're talking to them and saying, you didn't change the oil, you didn't add the coolant, you let it overheat, they start to hear that as a personal attack on them. So
Right.
a lot of times when I'm talking to a customer, I'll say the car ran out of oil, the car overheated, these kind of things. And I associate all the bad things with the car. And
Oh,
then
I
when it
think that's
comes,
good advice. Yeah.
I try to find something positive in those and and say, I can tell you take really good care of the car. It's very clean inside. I can tell that you just rotated your tires and you're doing a lot of maintenance. So I attribute the positive attributes of the whole repair order to the customer, and I attribute the negative attributes of the repair order to the car, and I separate them. And so what the customer is hearing is, I'm doing my best. I've tried my best. This isn't my fault. And let's blame it all on the car.
And I think that's a great point to make. And I want to go back and talk about the pictures for a minute. Part of our job is building value for the car to make the customer, realize that it has potential and that it can be fixed and they can keep it without having to buy something new. And
Yes.
so if you are a service advisor, you're in your shop and your technicians are only taking pictures of all the bad stuff, you got to sprinkle the good things in there about the car. Hey, the car's in great shape, upholstery's good. You came in today and we did an oil service and we didn't find anything else. Like everything's, great. We have to do that and build value for those vehicles as well. And I think some people forget that.
Yes. Whenever we are at that fork in the road with a customer where they're trying to decide legitimately whether they should do the repairs or whether they should, you know, go someplace else, get their money into a newer vehicle. First of all, we try to be honest with them. If we really think that they shouldn't put any more money into it, we tell them that. I'm always surprised at the people that argue with you on that. It's like, listen, I'm actually losing money by telling you this information, but I don't think you should put an engine in this one. It has 275,000 miles on it. It's 22 years old. We try to guide them and be a good steward of their finances and help them with those decisions. But then the other thing I tell them is to really take into consideration, if the repair bill is, let's say, $2,500 and they're considering getting rid of the car, I tell them to take into consideration, could you go out and get what you've got. Could you get the same vehicle for $2,500? Or are you going to be in it to a payment? Maybe you're upside down on your loan. You also have to pay your personal property taxes on this. Like the $2,500 sounds like a big bite now, but maybe it's not the bigger chunk that you're looking at here.
Well, and again, it's about slowing down, explaining things to the customer, not being in a rush. And I like to call it spending relationship coins. Like when you're doing that, you're actually you're without doing it, you're reaching into your pocket, you're taking coins and you're giving those to the customer. And if you do it well enough and long enough, then the customer will hand all those back to you in real cash to fix the vehicle.
Yes.
But you got to spend time with the customers. You can't be so crazy and busy that you're just running around all the time.
Yes.
So that's amazing, Kacie. Any other words, any last thoughts or impressions you want to share before we go?
I think the biggest thing about this industry is that it has been given such a bad reputation for so long. I mean, we're all crooks and thieves and stealing things out of your car, and we're all doing that. And so the biggest part, I think, as an industry as a whole, is that we have to start putting trust back in, and trust has to be built into all of our estimates. It has to be built into all of our practices. Everything that we do has to have a trust factor built into it. And so the things like the pictures that show people what we're talking about, we do, I'll walk customers in my shop and talk to them about, show them the repair. We ride with customers to hear what they're hearing or feel what they're feeling, and just try to give them, and that trust factor has to be built back into all of it. Trust, you can't put a dollar figure on it, but people will pay good money for trust.
Absolutely. Again, thanks so much, Kacie. Everybody out there, if you want to have any follow-up questions or have questions for the show, you can send it to Chris at AutoFix-SOS.com. Also, we have 2 other podcasts, the Weekly Blitz with Chris Cotton that you can go out and listen to. And we just started the AutoFix Technology Cast. Have a great day, everybody.
Thanks, Chris.